Is it recording?
Oh, there we go.
It is. All right. Do you hear me, Connie?
Yes, I do.
Okay, just checking.
Yes, I do.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Eleanor, I see you're a participant. Can you raise your hand just to confirm you can hear me okay, and we'll get going. Thank you, Eleanor. I am going to share so we can start the webinar. All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where in the world that you are. Welcome to Churchill Leadership Group's webinar on how to jumpstart sustainable team performance. Why are we talking about this? I personally am incredibly passionate about team performance, and it's always amazing why I'm always amazed when we work with clients at Churchill, how clients don't make this a #1 priority, because so much happens in the corporate and government world that's dependable on team performance. So that's why we're talking about it today, because it's such a critical success factor. Today, during the next sort of 40 minutes, we'll talk about the reality of teams, the benefits of focusing on teams. We'll spend quite a bit of time talking about the success factors, what really drives sustainable team performance, as well as maybe some of the challenges that you're facing and that we see at Churchill, and also assessments, tools with a few cases as well. Towards the end, actually during those 40 minutes, we'll have lots of time to interact. And then towards the end, we'll still give some extra time for you to answer your questions, but also share some tips with your colleagues on the line. And I will also share the Churchill's offer of a team assessment and coaching session. We're offering a handful of those to members of this webinar. So a little about me. I am an executive coach. Connie, can you mute everyone? Can you do that at your end?
Unmute the participants or myself?
Mute participants, because I can hear some background noise. Okay, so I am an executive coach, trained executive coach. I've been coaching for over 20 years. And I'm also the CEO of Churchill Leadership Group. And my job is predominantly working with clients on their needs and then passing it over to our team of 150 coaches around the world to do the work. I'm just muting here as well myself. All right. Why am I qualified to talk about team performance, right? Context. I've led many teams in the corporate world. One of the largest teams I led was a team of 120 people with 7 states in the US and the Southeast, with over $5 billion responsibility. So I've got real world team leading experience over several decades. I'm a certified team coach, which means I've been trained to help leaders and teams increase their performance through Team Coaching International, through Strengths and Strengths Finder with Gallup, as well as I do a lot of work with the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And I've been part of the build of a variety of different Churchill team programs. So I continue to work with teams in some capacity and have the background training. What's even more interesting is because I work globally with our clients, I get to speak to many HR leaders and senior team leaders on what they're experiencing in their organization, the challenges they're facing with teams, what's working, what isn't, and what they need. So I bring that mix of cross-industry, cross-cultural, cross-geography experience to the table. Little on Churchill. We exist because we really believe there's untapped talent in the corporate and government work in the world, and we believe focusing on helping leaders and teams capability, skill, the right mindsets, and putting together programs that really help you change behavior over time is important. So we will help organizations improve greater leadership impact and greater team performance across the globe. And we have over 150 coaches to do that work. Here are just some of our clients. Okay. We also have on the line our Director of Marketing at Churchill, Dr. Courtney Evans, and she's also a certified analytical and data expert. So when we talk about data with teams, I know she gets pretty excited. Connie, anything else you'd like to ask why you're so passionate about team performance, please?
Yeah, I'm excited to see what you have to share with us today. I know in our own team here at Churchill, we've been focusing a lot on our team performance and building that synergy and really starting to see the results and the impact of what you're about to share with us today. So I'm excited to hear more and to have our guests learn more about what you offer.
Thank you, Connie. Appreciate that. And you're right, we're definitely seeing the benefits inside of Churchill. So let's focus on the reality of teams and the benefits of improving team performance. And I want to encourage the audience at any point, if you have a question, if you have a comment, to use a chat box or even come off mute. Interrupt me, I'm fine with that, and verbally share what you have to say. Do not hesitate. Or you can hold on to your questions and we can address them towards the end. All right, so let's think about the environment in which we operate, government teams, corporate teams. I think most organizations, what we see are a dynamic mix of interconnected teams. It's complex. Teams across divisions, across the globe, across cultures. Teams, most people are on multiple teams of some type. And so a lot of their work that they're doing on a daily basis is interacting with other people in some sort of team environment. We are under pressure. I know I was in corporate and I left corporate 8 years ago and it's just got more extreme. So there's a relentless drive to do more with less, to fit more into our day, to deliver more, to do it with less resources. And of course, that creates a risk of burnout. And the best asset you have in your organization and within your teams are your people. And I think we all saw about a month ago that burnout now is a medical diagnosis. So it's very real and it happens all the time across teams. VUCA, as we know, that's the volatility, the uncertainty, the complexity, and the ambiguity that goes on in business today demands that we really open up and collect the wisdom of a team. No longer does a leader have to have all the answers. One of the programs we do, Leader as Great Coach, teaches leaders to coach their teams to get the wisdom out of the teams and maximize the potential of the teams. And that's really needed in the complex environment in which we work today. So the gap that we see at Churchill is we're not equipping our teams to perform, to know how to operate as a team, how to perform as a team, and do so sustainably, both within the team that they're structurally part of and work across teams where a lot of the work has to happen. So that's the gap we're going to focus on today. So a couple of sort of early tips to help you is that tweaking your mindset. Whether you are a leader on this webinar and you lead one or many teams, whether you are a member of HR trying to improve teams across your organization or support teams as an HR business partner, these are some of the things to think about. The first thing is what we know from our work with Team Coaching International, and they're the people that develop and provide the assessments that Churchill uses. They do a lot of research and have worked with thousands of teams, and they recognize and they've learned that teams are more important than the organizational strategy. You can have an okay strategy, but the execution of your strategy is what matters, and it's your teams that are doing the executing. So their ability to execute on your strategy and deliver is actually more important than the strategy itself. And so your opportunity to enhance the productivity within your organization lies at that team level. So if you're not talking about team performance, measuring team performance and putting processes and plans in place to improve it, change your mindset. You need to be having those conversations and making that a priority. Instead of thinking of as a team as a group of individuals and focusing on the individuals, and very often team programs focus on the leader, while that is important, what I really want you to think about is thinking of a team as a living system. A team has its own culture, behaviors. They accept certain things, even if those expectations aren't even working that well for them. They have their rules, they have their own politics. So we have to also look at the team as a system, and I'll come back to that. Teams exist to produce results. So what are you measuring as a team? You're probably measuring the project outcome. Is the project getting delivered that the team's responsible for? But what else are you measuring? How are you measuring the success of the system? Most of you probably aren't, which is why we put together this program at Churchill. And think about the competencies that are imperative for the teams that you're working on or lead. Okay, and we'll talk about 14 different competencies to help you identify a few that after this webinar you can go away and think more about. So this is the interactive part, one of several pieces within the webinar. Please take a minute to do a reflection. I'll be quiet in a moment and ask you to think about what is the most sustainably performing team you have experienced. Maybe you were on the team, maybe you led the team, maybe you support the team. What factors do you notice contribute to that sustainable performance? And then share a few words in the chat box. Thank you. While we do that, I'm going to have a check-in that people can hear. Elena, can you put your hand up again if you can still hear me? Thank you. And then Connie's going to keep an eye on the chat box and share with us some of the observations that you see in sustainable performing teams.
Yes, Christina wants to share trust.
Trust is high on high-performing teams. Absolutely. That's a good one. And that will definitely be in the factors that we look at in a moment.
Effective and frequent communication.
Yes, yes. And yet, communication is one of the challenges that clients come to us all the time because teams aren't communicating consistently effectively, but it's a must, absolutely. Thank you.
Organization, trust, and respect.
Yes, if any of you have done the program, which is another program that we do at Churchill, the 5 dysfunctions of a team, you'll know that the foundation of team success is trust. If I don't trust you, it's hard for me to open up when I'm stuck and need your help. And often we do need help from each other to have a sustainably performing team. I may not be honest with you as a team leader because I'm worried about consequences because I don't trust you. Trust is huge, and it's not just with the leader, it's across peers. Okay, so that gives us a bit of insight on what we need on teams from your perspective. Let's move forward here. We're also going to show a poll. I hope you like that cat there. I love showing animal pictures in the webinars that I do, big animal lover. Connie is going to launch a poll for us to identify some of the challenges you're seeing with your teams right now.
Yeah, Jane, you have to launch it on your end, sorry.
All right, so let's do this. Please vote.
Perfect, I see it up, thank you.
You're welcome. More than half of you have voted, so I'll just give another couple of seconds. Okay, so what I'm seeing is the biggest challenge is role and accountability is uncertain on teams, and that causes some of the biggest challenges for you. And we see that all the time. I do this arch with my finger, as you see, and what I mean by that is teams are working at this level, maybe at a first line team level, and think blaming each other because each other believes the other team isn't doing the work, and that goes up the chain to the directors and the VPs, and then the VPs have to sort it out, and it comes back down the chain. So we have this arch effect, and senior executives get really annoyed when it gets to them. They expect teams to be able to figure it out for themselves. Well, the challenge is the VPs aren't necessarily investing in teams to help them figure this stuff out for themselves and have clear accountability. And that's why we need to invest in teams. I'm also seeing here an equal response on lack of trust and poor communication. Those two are actually connected, as are much of these challenges. There are things, concrete things that teams can do to improve communication and improve trust. We just need to teach them how to do it. It just doesn't come natural for most teams and team members. Unclear goals, disengagement are there as well. They're all common challenges. So thank you very much for your input. I think, can you see the results, Connie?
Yes, Jane, we can. Thank you.
Excellent. So I'll just give you a second there and I'll stop sharing and we'll move on. Thank you for your input, audience. Okay, so I mentioned that we work with Team Coaching International, and they provide a lot of the data that we use in terms of assessments. Their research globally over thousands of teams show, and these teams are self-identifying where they think they are in terms of performance, and what they find is less than 12% of teams rate themselves as high performing. So let's think about that for a moment. 1 in 10 of your teams potentially are high performing, 9 out of 10 are not. Bit of an opportunity that we need to address, which is why I'm so passionate about team performance, because organizations want to perform better. Here is the opportunity. Martin, can you go on mute, please? That would be cool. Thank you. All right. So imagine if something else in your organization, if 90% of an asset was underperforming, wouldn't it get your focus, right? What if the C-suite in your organization, 90% of it was underperforming? Wouldn't your board jump on it and address it straight away, right? It doesn't matter what asset, right? Maybe it's your IT system. If it was underperforming at a 90% rate, wouldn't you change it? Wouldn't you fix it? So we need to, I hate the word fix, we have to help teams perform because 90% of them are underperforming. So there's some context, so some tips. I think we have to realize that peers can create greater, strong peer accountability than a manager can create through control, right? So we have to teach peers how to do that, how to work better together to hold each other accountable, because they can do it on a regular basis as they work together versus all that pressure being on the team leader. The other thing I want you to think about as a tip is teams naturally function as a social unit. A family is a team. We are social animals. And so if you help the team know how to perform better, give them the tools, the data, the training they need, you won't have to handhold them as much, because socially they will perform better and know how to. So I think we all believe, probably why you're on this webinar, that there is plenty of untapped talent in our teams. It's there. We just have to figure out how to unwrap it, how to shine the light and let it really thrive. And to do that, we have to teach teams how to achieve sustainable performance with data, concrete data, a process and tools. So let's get into the how-to. I'm going to pause for a minute, see if there are any questions or comments in the chat Connie you would like to share, and open up to the audience in case they want to say something.
I'm just amazed that we're looking at 90%. That is unbelievable. That's really shocking.
Yeah. And that's team self-reporting. It's not Churchill coaches saying that. That is the teams themselves. And those are teams at all different levels, including at the executive level. Okay, I'll move on. All right, so the first thing we have to think about is what are the conditions needed for sustainable high performance? And so let me just clarify that. I think we've all seen teams that can perform at times, right? I certainly have. How do we get a team to perform all of the time? Sustainability, right? So we're not just going for good, we're going for great, and great all of the time. And so we have to know what it takes. And there are a couple of things. I'm going to show you 14 factors that it takes, trust and communication being two of them. But I want you to, again, to revisit this about thinking of as a team as a whole system instead of just a group of individuals. A team is constantly changing, right? New members come, other members go, their remit changes, the leader changes. Teams have a past, they have a present, and they have, hopefully, a future. What comes with that are behaviors that are allowed on the team. You may have certain values of your organization that are written down on your website, but is the team behaving that way? They accept behaviors from each other, and often those behaviors don't always necessarily work for team performance. It can be that they don't respect each other, and yet they allow it to continue to happen. And so we have to see the team as a system and understand the respect that isn't happening. So we have to view the team as a system versus just trying to fix individuals. Teams have a reputation. Your stakeholders and the customers are probably the first to tell you what that reputation is. And we need to improve, we need to know that, and we need to find ways to improve it, to have that competitive edge. And so instead of focus less on the individuals and view the system, the behaviors, the culture, the capability of the system versus just individuals in order to raise the outcomes that the teams can produce. And we have to commit to a process to help the team grow as a system, okay? The other thing is we have to measure things within the system. What do we observe in the system? And there are 14 competencies. 7 are about the productivity of the system, and I'll show these in a moment. 7 are around the positivity of the system. And when we do this at Churchill and we observe teams over time and coach them to improve these productivity and positivity competencies, we also do it focused on the team goals, KPIs. Maybe the team has to deliver on this project by this date. Maybe the executive team is trying to change the values of the organization or lead the organization through a certain change. So we want to do it in parallel with the team goals. That is critical. And that is what excited me personally to get certified in the Team Coaching International product, and then use our certified team of over 25 coaches around the globe to deliver this work and coach the teams. So let's take a look at what this looks like. Here are the 7 productivity indicators you need to look for. So make a note of them. You can look for these with your own teams, or we can work with you to help measure them and help you improve them. But these are important to know. Teams need to be proactive. What does that mean? I'll call out a few of these. It means they are open to change. Change the organization needs them to go through. They are proactive with change. They recognize they need to improve in areas and they get going. They are looking to be innovative. Another thing, leadership. What does it mean by leadership? It doesn't mean just the leader is exhibiting leadership. It means everyone on the team is playing the role of leader at a point and when the situation needs it. Everyone is leading and making a difference at some point in time. I see a hand raised. Connie, do you see that? I don't know if Danielle has a question or she's agreeing or disagreeing.
I can't see hand raised on my end. I can only see chats or Q&A questions.
Danielle, I know we know each other. Any question or something you want the group to hear? Feel free to come off mute or share it in the chat box. Would love to hear from your tremendous experience. I'll continue otherwise. Oh, hang on, here we go. Yes, I have a question. Surprised I don't see communication listed as strengths. Great question. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. We're coming to that. So good observation there. So these are the productivity performance indicators. Another one that I'll call out is resources. I think if you ask any team in government or corporate America, everyone would say we don't have enough resources, right? We hear that all the time. But what this means, what you have to look for, is how does the team make the most of their resources that they do have? How do they maximize what they've got? Some teams we might hear just complaints, we need more, that's why we're not performing. That's a red flag. We need teams capable of thinking differently, looking at what they've got, getting creative and maximizing what they've got. And if a team can't do that, that's part of the coaching that we focus on. Now let's go to Danielle's point. The other 7 factors are positivity factors, and this is where communication comes in. This is how we think of the productivity factors of the things that we do. Right, so let me just go back a second. We have to have clear goals. We've got to put clear goals in place. We've got to align to that goal. We've got to stay accountable to those goals. We've got to sit down and discuss and make decisions around how we do that. The positivity is how we interact with each other. So that's the respect and trust that we've been talking about. It's the communication. I think most of us would agree that we want in the workplace clear, get to the point communication. Tell me what you think. Don't dance around the mulberry bush, right? But few teams have that. People don't know how to communicate effectively. And so communication becomes a big issue with the team and gets in the way of sustainable performance. Another thing I'll call out here is values diversity. I think we all know diversity exists, right? It just does. Diversity of experience, strengths, culture, gender, everything that we could think of. Sustainably performing teams know they rely on leveraging, including that diversity to help the team perform. They have higher respect. They bring that diversity in, make sure everyone is heard and understood. They're curious about that diversity to learn more about each other, to be able to bring that, put that on the table for the benefit of the teams and the people that are subject to the impact of the team, the customers, the stakeholders. So what you might also notice is some of these overlap, right? Respect and including, making sure there's inclusion around diversity, there's an overlap there. Our ability to trust each other and therefore how we communicate with each other, there's an overlap there. So when we work with a team, they usually, based on their assessment results, choose a couple of these 14 factors, typically 2 or 3 to work on, aligned to their business goals, their KPIs. But then what we find is many of them improve. Because if they get better at a couple of these, they have an impact on the other factors. And that's a good thing, right? That's a good sort of side effect. Okay, so let's talk about types of teams. Okay, so when we measure a team, and I'll show you the assessment in a moment, there are 4 types of teams. And a team can come out in terms of results that they overlap 1, 2 or more of these quadrants. But what we want to get to is that top right box. Teams that have high positivity, those 7 factors, are very high, and high productivity, those 7 factors. And so we want a team to be moving over time to that top right corner. Let's think what it might feel like if you're on a team where it has high productivity and low positivity. So this quadrant in the bottom right, let's just think about that for a moment. So let's go back. High productivity. We've got clear goals, we're aligned to them. We are very accountable. We make decisions. We all play a leadership role. We're making the most of our resources. All of that's going really well. But we're low on this stuff. The respect isn't there. We may not trust each other. We're not that optimistic. We really don't include the diversity that exists. We're not that good at communication. What might that feel like working on a team like that? Please enter into the chat box. What behaviors might show up? What would it feel like being on a team long term that felt like that? Any thoughts from yourself, Connie, while we're waiting for people to type?
Yeah, well, I'm just going to say frustrating.
Great, yeah. Looks like some of the chat's coming in. What are you seeing, Connie?
Yes, distance, burnout, high retention risk, and lack of engagement.
Yes, right. So most of you have, excellent. Most of you can measure some of that stuff, right? You have engagement surveys that you can be looking at the team level. You can measure your turnover rates, and we know how costly and frustrating that is. And you're absolutely right. So let me move forward and share a little more insight from our experience. Oops, a bit trigger happy here with my fingers. Bottom right corner, let's take a look. Absolutely, burnout retention problems, spot on. The focus is on getting things done, efficiency. It isn't about the people necessarily. So that's why burnout happens. People might be more guarded because there's low trust, low respect. They may have clear objectives and be driven, but it's not sustainable. And so with a team like that, we would identify that and help them recognize what's missing, continue to focus on what's working for them, but increase that positivity, those positivity factors. Let's look at the green, top left. Low productivity and high positivity. This is a team that might be more interested in organizing team barbecues than they are in delivering on goals. So you might hear clients complain that they're not delivering. You might get frustration of teams around them that while they're good, they're fun to work with, they're nice people, they're not getting their work done. They're not delivering on what they say they would. And yet incompetence is tolerated. They allow it and it continues. So while they've got a lot of the positivity stuff going on, they're not performing. And there's a reason the team in the bottom left is a brown color. There's a lot of crap that's going on down there. And so we want to be able to help teams identify what's going on in their team at any point in time and move them towards the blue, the top right. So let me pause and breathe and check in with any other thoughts and questions that our audience has. Feel free to come off the microphone, come off mute, or use chat to share thoughts, tips, questions.
Jane, I have a question. In your experience, do you find that more teams fall in one of those categories more than the other, or is it all across the board, just depending on the culture of the team?
Great question, and your second part is correct. Teams come in all shapes and sizes. The challenge is, and this is really why I'm so passionate about it, and I'll get to the assessment in a minute, is teams often are guessing at what they need to work on, right? They have a perception because they're so in the system themselves, they're not always as objective as they need to be. And often when we work with HR business partners, it's hard for them to really see what's going on as well because they're not with the team all the time. So we need the team to collectively identify using a very sort of objective tool to ground themselves on data. Data. When we work with executive teams, C-suite team, VP teams, boards, they want data. Give us concrete. Let us know where we stand today. Help us work on it and let us know how we're progressing. So data. And I know how much you love data, Connie, as I'm sure a lot of people on the webinar do. So all shapes and sizes in answer to your question. So let's move forward and talk about the process and the data. The process Churchill uses, and again, this will give you some insight with the work you're doing with teams, is a 5-step process. I like clarity. I struggle. I think confused minds do nothing. So here's clarity of the steps we take at Churchill, and it works. What I'm going to show you is typically when we're working with executive teams. So if you have executive teams in mind in your organization, start there because how they perform, how they role model team performance is seen by the rest of the organization. So why wouldn't we start there? And if an executive team is sort of not sure where they want to improve, this data helps them recognize what they need. Okay, so the process itself is to identify the team. and tie it to whatever business goals they need to focus on. The two have to come hand in hand. Explore why team coaching is important and why now. Why do they need a team coach to help them sustainably perform? Then we want to deploy the assessment and get them that hard data, concrete data, and prep for a team workshop. And during that workshop, we reveal the results. We explore the results. We decide of the 14 factors, which are the ones do the team want to work on. We work with rules of engagement, how the team want to operate during these coaching sessions, where they're working with a team coach, and also what is the coach's role and what is not the coach's role. We all want to get on the same page, build trust with the team and across the team, and put an action plan in place. Now, this is what I love about this program is the team has to find the time to do that workshop up front, but then the team coach joins them at their regular meetings. They don't have to carve out extra time to do this. They know what they're going to work on together, and the team coach watches them in action. The team coach is trained on those 14 things and how to help teams improve. So the team coach will focus on the few that the team has decided on and give them meaningful, in-the-moment feedback, help them adjust, help them sort of stop what they're doing, sit back. A bit of teaching, training will go on depending on what the team needs to learn to do better. So it's real time, real action orientated, focused on where the team wants to improve. So the program can be 4 to 12 months. It's usually around 6 months. And at the end of that period, we do another assessment to see where progress has happened. Maybe we stop there and the team are off to a really good sustainable performance space. Maybe there's more work to go. Okay, but it's a process, it's a clear process versus a lot of teamwork, which is a one-off event. And we know human behavior doesn't change because of a one-off workshop. It can improve, but it doesn't get us to sustainable performance. So let's take a quick look at the assessments. How do we get that data? Again, these assessments are, we have over 25 coaches that are certified and you can use these assessments. The assessments are built by Team Coaching International. They have used these assessments with thousands of teams globally for about 15 years. And what they find is with this team coaching program that Churchill does, teams find about 20% improvement. That's huge. That's huge, right? It's also available in many languages, which Churchill works with global teams. We have to do a lot of in Korean, German, Chinese. It allows us to use this program for your executive senior teams around the world. So this particular one, the first assessment, is where the whole team takes it. The whole team takes the assessment, including the leader, and diagnoses where the team are with those 14 factors. This is the one we use the most. There's another one, which we use a lot, which is Team Leader View, where just the leader takes it. This is the free gift we're going to give a handful of you. It's a snapshot from the leader's view. It measures the impact of the leader's leadership more than anything else. It's cost effective. It's a great place to start if you're not sure if you're ready to jump in and do a whole team coaching program, and it's incredibly valuable. So the gift that we're going to give you is a free version of this plus an hour with me where I coach the team leader around the results. So that's the value of that is about $500. So we're going to give 5 of those away at the end. It's a perfect bridge to start to diagnose your team. And what we find often is when the leader sees their view of the team, they start to get really curious. Well, what does my team think? And they tend to want to take that next step of having the whole team take the assessment, which is this first one I showed you, and then do the team coaching. So there's options. There are 2 other options I'll touch on quickly. I particularly like this option because it allows the stakeholders to measure the team. So let's say you're measuring the executive team, the C-suite. Who do they have the biggest impact on? It could be the whole organization. It could be the next level down, the VP team. So the VP get to take this assessment and they measure how the C-suite are performing. So you could have it for a project team and measure their customers and how the customers are viewing that team. So it gives that third-party view, which I think is really valuable if you need it. And then there's an organizational view, particularly important to measure the culture of your organization, productivity. See how your senior leaders are doing, their impact on the organization, or maybe assessing where you are. Are you ready for a big change you're going through? It can complement an engagement survey very well. So those are the assessments. Let me give you a little deeper into what the assessments show you. So remember, we looked at the 4 quadrants, right? We want to be top right, moving towards that top corner of the blue. What the white shows here is a baseline of a team. So they are doing quite well. They're into that productivity, but the actual white box is a measure of all team members measuring all of those 14 factors. So there's a spread because of it. And so the assessment asks 80 questions, plus you can add in 3 to 5 open questions of your choice. And this is the spread of those questions and how it affects high productivity to low productivity. So we'd probably here definitely want to address some of the lower productivity side here that we see there in the green to move it more towards the blue. Part of the assessment goes deeper into different layers. Here's one of the layers that is very valuable because this measures the 14. You can see on this team, trust is low. You also can see that goals and strategy are low and constructive interaction. So a team, when they see their results, might jump and say, those are the 3 things we're going to focus on. And from a business perspective, here's our business goal. Coach, help us improve these 3 factors as we work in our business meetings towards this deliverable, this business goal. And that's a big part of the action plan that the team coach works on for them. So they've got solid data, okay? As a team goes through this, they have a deeper understanding of which each of these 14 mean. So we educate them on that, but they can focus. They can focus on their areas of growth with the coach helping them. To the question that came in, Connie, teams come in all shapes and sizes. Yeah, so we see it all. And remember, at the end of the team coaching, months down the line, we want to reassess. This is what it would look like. The sort of the brown here is where the team started. This is where they ended up. Significant improvement, higher than the 20% in this team. This was a healthcare team, and they did a 1-year program. And this is where their factors increase. The brown is where they started. The purple shows the growth. So although they focused on a couple of items, you see how those items overspill to help them improve many items of the 14. Okay. Any questions, any comments in chat that we need to hear, Connie? And then I'll wrap up.
Yes, Jane, what are some tips for dealing with unproductive team members?
So I've mentioned multiple tips as we're going, and when it comes to productivity, I would say if you're feeling it's less about the interaction of the people, the communication, the trust, the respect, the valuing diversity, if it's more about the productivity stuff, I would look at those 7 that we talked about earlier, and do the assessment. Do the assessment, even if it's just the leader view of the assessment, to get grounded on what are some of the productivity factors you need to focus and work on. I would definitely say that. That would be my number 1 tip, in addition to the things that I've shared so far. Thank you for asking. All right. I think we have a case here that we popped in. This is another healthcare team. On the left, you can see how the team coaching helped them improve satisfaction of their clients, of their patients, of the clinic itself. Significant increase in the year that they worked with a team coach. You also can see here the productivity measures, how those improved. And so ultimately, this is dollars for the business, right? So the question becomes, for your important teams, do you have a choice not to improve sustainable performance? Why wouldn't you invest there? Here are a couple of testimonials from clients that have used this program. And then we'll wrap up with the offer and final questions. Connie, anything you would add before we do that?
Yeah, I'm really excited to learn a lot more about this approach that you're introducing us to. I think what struck me most is the change that needs to happen in the mindset, and to, actually look at your team as a living system that needs to shift from that commitment from the individual to the actual team outcome. I just think that's so critical to focus on building the team competency for both the teams and the leaders. And I was really struck by, your team members need to take some accountability. It's not all on those
Yeah,
all the time. Um, yeah, so I'm really excited that we got to learn some more about the productivity and positivity, looking at those elemental factors that go into a high performing team. And it's great to know that there are actual assessments and tools and data, my favorite thing over here, that, fortify your team to work as a complete system. And
thank
that is
you.
sustainable and it's scalable, with a global reach. So fantastic. Thank you for sharing, Jane.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And you're right. Most team approaches focus on the leader. We've got to get the leader to get better. And while that's important, it misses the team system. And what the real value the coach gets to do over time by helping the team get data grounded. What are we going to focus on? What do we want to improve? Focus that on our business goals. The coach then, as an expert coach, gets to observe the team in action and sees things the team don't see because they're so used to doing it that way. Maybe it's introverts on the team don't get input into decisions because the more extroverts talk over them and no one's sort of realizing it's going on, and it's continued for years, and that is a real pinnacle point that they can improve, and it changes the game of the team. That's just one example for illustration. So we have to have an expert observe the team system as an objective view and help the team build awareness and know how to make a change, which again is part of the team coaching. I think I saw the chat light come on. What came in
We've got
here?
one more question here. Would you suggest anything else for teams that are global and challenged by time zone and cultural differences?
In addition to the 14, because the 14 for me sound a lot, right? Like 14 for me, looking at a team as a system and those 14 things to get measured on seems a lot already to me. The only other piece I would add to that, and it's within that wealth of communication, is video. So many teams, although they have video capability, and we're a big fan of Zoom here, all of our conversations with clients, coaches, talking to each other, the Churchill leadership team, we use Zoom, and we use other tools as well. And most companies have tools like that, and yet they're not used. And technology is way ahead of what we're using. Even when we work with tech teams, they're not using it. So I would encourage to build particularly that positivity, those positivity factors of trust and communication, is to use video conference on a very regular basis to build that bonding of the team and greater clarity. Otherwise, I think they're looking at the team as a system. Investing in team coaching to focus on some of those 14 is more than enough, I think is what I would say. I hope that helped. All right, so just to give you a little context, we're very flexible at Churchill, and clients typically want different things. So we can come in and do a program like this, and we do everything. And we keep you fully informed. We work with you, we align with you, but we do all the work. We also do it where HR is a big part of this. It might be that HR is in the room for all of these meetings and works as sort of a backup coach. The Churchill coach would be the lead coach, but HR is there as well. And some of the advantages of that is HR can continue to work with the team in between the coaching sessions. So I love that co-collaborative approach as well. So we can do either of these approaches or a third approach that we explore together. All right, so benefits, I think we've touched on these. This program is particularly good for your more senior teams. I'd start there. It is an investment, but it is incredible investment in terms of the outcomes. It's backed by lots of data and lots of proof. 4 to 12 months, assessment, 1 to 2 day workshop, then we're at your team meetings. online, the assessment itself. It's anonymous, so no one knows who said what, and lots of languages to meet your global diversity. The program assesses the system, it views the system, it measures the system, it observes the system, it coaches the system. And we're looking at both a mix of productivity and positivity. You're using coaches that have been doing this for a very long time and are trained ICF team certified coaches. And you can have that customer view as well. That 360 assessment's an option. Team gets to decide what to work on, so it's their choice. And there's also a communication plan where they can communicate to the people that report to them about what they're doing, and that's always helpful. Action. Okay, if you need more information about how this program would work for you and you're a leader in an organization or an HR lead or HR business partner, I'm happy to spend free 30 minutes with you and talk about your need and share my wisdom. If you want to do that, just type yes in the chat box. Connie will capture that and we'll follow up and schedule. The second call to action is we're offering 5 team leader view assessments and an hour debrief of your results and coaching with me. And raise your hand if you're interested and we will provide you that. That's worth about $500. You need to take the assessment and you need to find an hour with me, and I promise you it will be worth your time. I do this a lot. So yes in the chat box for 30 minutes with me. Raise your hand if you want to take the option. You can do both. Feel free to do both. I'm happy to support you. Okay, make a note in your calendar. Our next webinar, again, as you know, this is a mix of showing you what we do, but also educating you so you can walk away with some practical tips to start using now. Our next one is going to be on communication. We can do a couple on communication. One is about neuroscience and conversational intelligence. That will be a little later in the year. The next one in August is how to be clear, concise, and compelling, something many of us struggle with. I'm certified in a program that does this. So if you want that, August 21st, 12 p.m., pop it in your calendar. Invites coming soon. Final thoughts and questions. Questions for me, questions for the group. What are you seeing, Connie?
Do you find competition as a constructive or distracting for teams in the workplace?
Oh, that's a really juicy question. We're a strengths-based organization, which means we use StrengthsFinder in many of our programs, including this team coaching program, and competition is one of those 34 strengths that are identified. I was working with myself with an executive team where I had a lot of competition within the team. I think the team was an executive group of 8. 4 of them, maybe 5 of them had competition in their top 5 strengths. So this was the insight through team coaching that we came up with. They were very competitive with each other. And at times that was fun and worked, but it also got in their way. It got in their way. So as a team coach, we had them think about how do you repurpose your competition and make it work for you more? And they decided to make it a value for their customers. How they then could transfer that team competitive strength that they naturally had to help their customers be more competitive. So they would have more conversations and produce tools for their customers to help their customers win in their markets. So that's just an example of how it can work for you or against you. So in this team coaching program, that would come out. It might be, it might show out in different a variety of those 14 factors, and so that would come out through the diagnosis, because although I showed you the 14 factors, there are other levels of the assessment, the assessment report, the report that the team gets, the results that shows the individual questions and what questions scored the highest and what questions scored the lowest. And so some of that would show we're too competitive or we're not competitive enough, so we could actually dig deeper with the team and address it. I hope that helps, Alina. Any other questions from the group? I'm happy to answer or tell you that I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I have a lot of experience.
Does your program work with virtual or remote teams?
It does. And very often, because programs are including remote teams, we often do what happens a lot is the workshop, that kickoff workshop, where we look at the results, decide which ones we're going to work on, put a plan in action. Often that's done live. And then the coach joins the team for those monthly coaching sessions, which again happen during the team's regular working meeting, are done virtually. So often we do those as Zoom meetings. And if any sort of training and practice has to happen during those sessions, we use the Zoom breakout rooms. Even the kickoff workshop can be done virtually. So we have the capability and the tools to do it virtually if the team needs that. Good question, thank you. All right, I'm taking a look at time. We have 4 minutes left. Happy to finish a little early. Want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for caring about sustainable team performance. I hope you've gone away with a few tips, mindset shifts that you will increase your conversations around team performance, get your teams to think about what they need to measure, and come to us for how to measure and how to improve team performance, particularly at those senior level teams, those critical teams that are most important to you. Thank you very much. Connie, any final words you would like to share?
I think I'm good. I just want to say thank you again for taking the time to share this with us. And I've definitely learned a lot that I can walk away with and apply. So thank you, Jane.
You're welcome. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day or evening. Bye-bye.